Hey, it's Vas here from Metro Hobbies, and today we're going to be getting our drift on. Of course, the winter months are fast approaching, and we're going to be spending a little bit more time indoors. Now, if you've got a little bit of room around the house, or perhaps you have a good sized garage, you might consider taking on some drifting, because of course, drifting can be a lot of fun, especially if you get a couple of people involved. And you know, we've been selling these Team Magic drift cars for quite some time now, so I figured it was time to showcase them here on the channel and take you through some of their key features. Alright, so when you get one of these out of the box, you're going to get, of course, the cars themselves, you're going to get the remote, and of course you get a little bag with some goodies. Now, you are going to need to do a little bit of assembly because they don't come with the rear body posts mounted, so you do need to mount those on. They do give you the body posts on here, they give you the body supports as well, and they give you some body pins, and everything is included. You just need some tools, like a basic screwdriver to put it all together. The front body posts already come pre-mounted. You can see that these guys look like they're slammed on the ground. That's because there's no body supports here. Otherwise, if you drive them as they are, they're just going to be scraping everywhere. There's also a little instruction booklet here for the speed controller and so forth, how to calibrate, all that type of stuff. There's a little antenna tube that they give you, but I'll be honest, you don't really need to use this antenna tube at all. So you can just leave the antennas as they are in the cars, because the antennas that they give you are actually quite short, and they're very firm, so they stand upright by themselves. In the bag, there's also some hop-up option parts that you can get, so a little leaflet on that if you want to put some upgrades on the cars. There's instructions on the actual radio itself on how to set it up and how to program it and bind it and what all the buttons mean and all that sort of thing, and then some more information booklets regarding some more accessories, and then you have the actual, I suppose you call it a manual, but it's not really. It's just really basic sheet that opens up, and it just goes through the basics of how to turn it on. There's an exploded view here that basically has all the part numbers labeled on here, which is fantastic. And it kind of gives you a bit of a hint on how everything goes together if you do need to service the car or do any repairs. There's also a parts list on the back of that sheet as well. So again, very, very useful information, just not a big manual. So no boring stuff there, getting straight to the point. Now, the radio itself is actually a really good radio. I've been using, because I have one of these myself, I actually have the GDR, and I've been using one of these for quite some time. They also come on the other Team Magic cars as well. It has a pretty good feel in the hand, runs on 4 AA's down the bottom here, and then you have no big collapsible antennas to break off or anything like that, which is really nice. And you have your on and off switch over here. You have your function button and channel 3 just there. There's these buttons here which are reverse switches as well as endpoint adjustments as well as on there. And then you have your steering dual rate up the top here. These act as trim, and then you can set them up as well for steering for steering and throttle endpoints via the function button that's on the back here. So a little bit tricky to use, hence the reason why they give you all the instructions for the radio on how to use it. But other than that, really handy. It has a couple of little standoffs on the back, so when you do lay it down, it doesn't wobble around or anything like that. So I wouldn't recommend sort of leaving it upright because the wind knocks it over, because it has a very slim base. Yeah, nice rubber wheel, great radio. All right, so let's move on to the cars. Okay, so now moving on to the cars themselves, you can see that I have the GDR and the 86 here, but there are a couple of other options. You have the RX-7, the Camaro, and there's a Nissan Silvia as well. So I'm sure that there's something here for everybody's taste. Now, when it comes to the cars, I'll take the bodies off here really quickly, and you'll see that there's these are the chassis here. Now, there are two options. There's a brushless version and there's a brushed version. So this here is the brushed version, and then you've got the brushless version on this guy here. Now, the brushless version is actually really interesting because it is a censored brushless combo, which is something that you don't normally see on ready-to-run vehicles. They're usually sensorless. So to have a censored combo is actually a really cool thing, because that means the acceleration is nice and smooth. There's no jittering at low RPMs, and it just gives you a really nice experience when drifting. Now, I will say, if you are fairly new to drifting, I would definitely go with the brushed version. These cars have a little bit of a steep learning curve, these particular cars, and I'll explain to you why that is in a second. So I would definitely go with the brushed version to begin with, and then when you become a little bit more experienced, then you can definitely go on to the brushless version, which of course has a lot more power and speed. Now the reason why I say that these have a bit of a steep learning curve is that these cars have a 64% counter steer. Now what that means is that the back wheels are actually spinning faster than the front. So the back wheel will actually do a full rotation before the front ones do. And that means as well that you can't just change out these wheels and tires to rubber tires, because the cars are just impossible to drive. I've actually done that with my own car. I have the GDR in the brushed version myself, and I put rubber tires on it and I couldn't even drive 5 meters in a straight line. The thing was just everywhere. So I don't recommend you doing that. If you want something where you can sort of swap between drift tires and rubber tires, there are other options that we can look at, but not with these particular Team Magic cars. And of course you can probably do it with these cars, but you'll need to change out the pulleys so that you have an exactly 50% power distribution between front and rear wheels. Now, the front diff is also a one-way diff. So what that means is that when you apply power, you have power to all 4 wheels. But when you apply the brake, only the back wheels actually lock up. So the brake only applies to the back wheels. What that means is that it's essentially like hitting the handbrake on a normal car. You're just locking up the rear wheels, and it's going to really kick out that rear end to get into a drift. So these cars, you kind of find yourself steering with the wheel as much as you do with the throttle. So applying a little bit of throttle can definitely kick the rear out a little bit because of that counter steer feature. And then when you tap the brake, it's like hitting the handbrake, the rear end just going to kick out real easy. So there is a little bit of a steep learning curve, as I said. You are going to need to practice this, but it is so rewarding when you do get it right. These cars are set up brilliantly out of the box, but as you can see, there are a number of adjustments that you can make on these vehicles as well. You've got camber adjustments in the rear, camber and tow adjustments on the front. You can change the shock position and suspension geometry on the shock towers and on the A-arms as well. Of course, the shocks are fully oil filled, so you can play around with different viscosities of oils if you want to and tune them up to your liking. They do have steel drive shafts all the way through, and as you can see, they are belt driven. It is using a twin belt system with a little adjustment pulley in the center here, so that the belts, if they stretch out over time, you can actually stiffen them up a little bit, which is really nice. As a matter of fact, they have a 3-belt pulley system. There's another short one just here. The pitch on the gears is actually a 64 pitch, but I have managed to swap these out to a 48 pitch if you want something a little bit coarser, because these spur gears can be swapped out to just a traditional spur gear, and then of course you need to change out your pinion as well. I think they've gone for the 64 just again for the smoothness of the application of the throttle, because the finer the tooth is, the smoother the rotation of the power application is, if that makes a bit of sense. Of course, you got your battery compartment back here, which is height adjustable, and these run basically on 2S. I think the brushless one might be able to run on 3S, but you'd be struggling to control it on 2S as it is. So these are really cool little cars. They have a beautiful, engineered chassis. They have great little features like the little brake calipers and everything. Not brake calipers, the rotors, brake rotors on behind the wheels are in there as well, which is really cool. And they're fairly lightweight as well. Now, they all come with the Dean's plugs included, as you can see, as standard. Steering servos are fully upgradable. There's a whole range of parts and upgraded parts, as you saw earlier, that you can get for these cars. And Team Magic also have a roller version available, which is like a pro version, which basically comes with nothing. It's just the rolling chassis, and then you apply you install your own electrics and get your own bodies and all that sort of thing. Now, speaking of bodies, these guys are actually pretty well detailed. The spoilers, a lot of the times you'll find that you'll need to fit the spoilers on the cars themselves. You've got little plastic wipers on here as well, plastic mirrors. There's also light buckets inside the actual cars as well. So you can get your own LEDs and fit LEDs to these cars. So the GDR body that I have, I actually fitted LED lights with mine, and they actually look fantastic. So highly recommend, if you do have access to some LED lights, to fit them out, because they do look really good on these particular drift cars. Alright, so that wraps up this video of the Team Magic drift cars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you have any questions or queries, please leave them in the comment section down below. As always, check out the video description for links to the cars and any other accessories and batteries and so forth that we will link so that you can get everything as a nice, neat little package. As you can see, there is no batteries or anything like that included in these things, so you are going to need to get those. That is it from me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll speak to you all next time. Stick around because, of course, we are going to be doing. What am I saying? I just went off on a tangent there.